Hi there, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in New York. The political fate of one Donald J. Trump and his MAGA Republican Party right now as we come on the air appears to be tethered to those glowing numbers next to every gas station in every town, in every state, in every corner of our great country. Gas prices are soaring because Donald Trump effed around by launching a war with Iran. And now Donald Trump is in the finding out phase of that, as Americans sour on him personally and his party at historic and unprecedented rates. Oil prices hit the highest level in 4 years Thursday before climbing off those highs, as the standoff with Iran and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz shows no sign of ending anytime soon. The nationwide price of gas, according to AAA, is $4.30 a gallon. It was 27 cents lower a week ago. It was $1.32 lower before the war started. The state's hardest hit, what the Wall Street Journal describes as, quote, Trump's political stronghold. Wall Street Journal reports that AAA data shows this, quote, prices at the pump in Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Iowa climbed faster than in any other states over the past week. These soaring gas prices are dominating people's lives. They're making decisions because of them. They're dominating the national conversation as well. Here's just some of what people are hearing as they watch their news.
Prices just jumped up to $4.19 a gallon for regular. That's a 30-cent increase overnight.
The double spike could drive up prices close to 40 cents a gallon.
If you're feeling more pain at the pump right now, you're not imagining things.
No, we all know gas prices are high, but new data from Gas Buddy shows prices are going to hike even higher.
In remarks yesterday, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell warned of further pain, additional pain ahead beyond what we're paying at the gas pump?
We're very well aware that people are experiencing higher gas prices all over the country now, and that hurts. And those hikes may continue to happen, and other things are going to start to reflect airline fares I mentioned, and other products and services that are dependent upon petroleum and derivatives of petroleum. People are going to start to feel that.
Anything you have delivered, like anything that travels to you from somewhere else. All of it, all of this now widespread and seemingly spiraling economic despair here at home is making Donald Trump squirm and publicly grapple with it. He seems to be looking for any quick and easy way out of the war he began with Iran. 3 sources with knowledge of the plans that are being cooked up tell Axios that Donald Trump is being briefed on a, quote, plan for a short and powerful wave of strikes on Iran, likely including infrastructure targets, in hopes of breaking the negotiating deadlock. Other options reportedly include taking over a part of the Strait of Hormuz or a special forces operation to secure Iran's uranium. MS Now has not independently confirmed that reporting in Axios, but all of those plans sound very dangerous for the men and women of the military, and they all mark a serious escalation and risk. So many of our friends and colleagues and regulars on this program have been warning us since the war began. Iran gets a vote. It gets a say in how the war goes from this point forward as well. Meanwhile, Donald Trump and his party are paying a steep political price right now. The new poll in Reuters shows Trump's approval rating falling to just 34%. 64% of all Americans disapprove of the job he is doing as president. Just 22% of all Americans approve of Donald Trump's handling of the cost of living. That is the single issue more than anything else that propelled him back to the White House in 2024, based on what voters told pollsters. Donald Trump's approval on the economy overall stands at 27%. That is lower than at any point since he entered the political arena. Donald Trump defined an energy crisis he created when he went to war with Iran is where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Former Chief of Staff at the Department of Homeland Security during Donald Trump's first term, Miles Taylor's here. And with me in studio, CNBC senior economics reporter Steve Liesman. We've spent the better part of a year and a half separating what the market's doing and reacting to from
and
what
had absolutely no success. The market's doing this and the economy's doing that.
Right. Whether you say tomato, I say tomato. But this is, I mean, gas prices are this thing that you see anywhere you go, and whether you're filling up or not, you note the price and you make decisions about when you'll fill up when you see it. And everyone is deciding whether that high and rather shocking number is something to fill up on because people are saying it's going to go up. I mean, those are the daily calculations people are making in their lives everywhere in this country right now.
I don't know if you saw me shaking my head when you were reading about Donald Trump saying we need to do more bombing.
Yeah.
This will not solve his problem if his problem is oil, right? So oil has a couple issues. We have been right now drawing on inventories. I think to make it short, you may not have seen anything yet when it comes to high oil prices.
Really?
Right now, we seem to be able to solve the problems that have been created by the closing of the Strait of Hormuz through inventories. Those inventories are rapidly dwindling. Now, what's interesting is how consumers are solving this problem. And I'll give you some data just from today. Real incomes are down 2 months in a row. The administration has touted this real income resurgence. Real means inflation adjusted, down 2 months in a row. Spending is okay. Some of it is going to its gas prices. So the question you might want to ask me, Nicole, is how can real incomes be down when spending is okay?
Yeah.
The savings rate. The savings rate is coming down. People do things, and maybe you have this experience in your own life.
Yeah.
Well, is this a temporary shock or a permanent shock?
Right.
I don't want to leave my house. I don't want to change my car. I don't want to move to a place closer so I drive less. I'm going to paper it over. So what we have is the savings rate is down now. I took some notes here. 2 months in a row to the lowest level since 2022. People are drawing from savings to keep their lifestyles in the same place they were before. That can't go on forever.
What is the impact historically of a crisis that is described by folks like yourself as an historic energy crisis?
It can be a recession. It depends on how the Federal Reserve reacts. Right now, they're hanging tight. They're trying to see if this can end relatively quickly and work its way through and not create an inflation problem. I will tell you, we got inflation data today, the worst since 2023, 3.2% on the core rate, 3.5% on the headline rate. And what I'll explain to you is that I'm not worried about the headline rate. The headline rate is pushed up by oil prices. Right, not a big deal. You take out oil and food, and you end up with the 3.2, which is a point over where the Fed wants it to be. And so that is telling us that we have a problem. You were talking earlier about oil and what it's involved in. So many things. You have this fertilizer problem, which is not a problem necessarily for right now, potential problem for next year when farmers have been taking it on the chin. It's really terrible what's been going on out there. But that's a problem for next year. So many components of the things of our daily lives are made from oil prices and the chemicals that are derived from it that you could get some other inflation. So the Fed's going to be very wary of that. It means for sure you're not going to get interest rate cuts you might have otherwise gotten. And now you got to think about whether or not there might be interest rate hikes because of it to control inflation.
I mean, the irony of Trump spending all this political capital on the Fed, even reimagining it, reshaping it, and having hikes seems pretty extraordinary.
So I think we need to put some money on the table here about when is the first tweet when the president complains about his new Fed chair.
Kevin Warsh,
because the thinking on Wall Street right now is that Kevin Warsh can't cut rates as the president wanted in June, July, September. There is no rate cut built into what we look at, the future structure of Fed funds, until July of 2027, maybe.
You say that, but Kevin Warsh, as a human and as a figure, wasn't able to say who won the 2020 election. Are you sure?
No. I mean, here's the thing. The difference between Kevin Warsh and Pam Bondi or Todd Blanche is that he has to convince 11 other people to go along with him. And right now, the feeling at the Fed is not to cut interest rates. It's maybe to move to a place where they could go either way here. So it's not a unilateral thing. Kevin is a persuasive guy. The chair of the Fed is a powerful position, but he has to bring 11 other people along with him.
Miles, have you seen Trump in a moment like this before, having worked for him in the first term?
Well, we tried to prevent a lot of moments like this, Nicole. I mean, I don't say that facetiously. I mean, there were wars, conflicts, international crises he wanted to foment, like this, including in the first term. He was considering going to war with Iran. He kept a number of us out of the room, as I was told by the White House Chief of Staff's office, because we were naysayers, because we were people who were trying to convince him not to. Now he didn't, but he's there. I've never seen him this unraveled, Nicole. He almost always, even in a losing situation, tries to find some way to put Donald Trump lipstick on a pig and say, well, look, I won, even when he didn't win. The fact that he is still considering military options is the biggest admission you've gotten from this White House, that they know they are not winning, that they have put the United States in a losing position. Unfortunately, almost none of those options you read off, citing Axios reporting, would put the United States ultimately in a winning position. Remember, Nicole, we were told that the nuclear program was going to be decimated. It was implied that the entire Iranian regime would be changed. It was said that Iran wouldn't be able to attack its adversaries in the region. It wouldn't be able to fund its proxies, and the Strait of Hormuz would be reopened, and its capabilities militarily would be decimated. None of those have been achieved. Those have not been achieved. And in almost every scenario, it looks like the United States will end up worse off vis-a-vis Iran than it was before. And so I'm not surprised to hear that Donald Trump wants to drop more bombs and create spectacle so he can say that something changed since very obvious failed negotiations.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Donald Trump is in the midst of learning a political lesson that you would think he, above anyone else, would know, right? The lesson is that people really care about gas prices. Have you heard that one? Oil, natural gas, gasoline are the most important commodities in the world. They are what modern civilization runs on. I think that's about to change because of how cheap and incredibly clean energy has gotten. But right now, you quite simply cannot run your society without fossil fuels. There's no other option. When the prices go up, people get pretty upset about it. And right now, prices are, as you may have noticed, way, way up because Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu started a pointless war in Iran, a war that killed 6,000 people, injured countless others, displaced a million more, has caused untold human misery and upended the lives of many, many people. It has also, as you might have heard, happened to disrupt the global supply chain for the world's most important commodity, the thing modern civilization runs on. A disruption that continues day after day after day to this very day, even with a seemingly indefinite ceasefire. Because as soon as the U.S. started bombing, Iran started to control the Strait of Hormuz, something that was not the case before this war, something that was long in this country. And they're pretty mad at Donald Trump for starting this war. Take a look at this chart. We were sort of marveling over this one today. A lot of charts don't read on TV, but I think this one gives you the point. So that's from pollster G. Elliott Morris, who tracks Trump's approval on a bunch of different issues. And you can see there's a bunch of issues. They all go in the same direction. They all go down. But the one that's the lowest, the one all the way at the bottom of your TV screen, the green line, that is Donald Trump's approval on inflation and the cost of living. Of course, that includes gas prices, because not only is gas a major expenditure for nearly every American, rising diesel costs in particular also make everything else more expensive. That doesn't even include the sort of inputs you get when you start getting to fertilizer and chemical products. And as you can see, Trump is just almost incomprehensibly unpopular when it comes to prices. Literally off the chart. He is so underwater, in fact, that he is off the chart. In fact, that chart doesn't go low enough to show his massive minus 40 approval on the issue. According to one analysis, this is an amazing historical tidbit to give you a sort of sense of comparison. Donald Trump is currently less popular on inflation than that man on your screen, Jimmy Carter. Carter, the guy who oversaw stagflation, the guy who was president during the '79 energy crisis, the guy with the sweaters and the malaise speech. I mean, just ask any voter at the gas pump.
It's bad, you know. People got to live, people got to eat, you know what I'm saying? And believe it or not, transportation is very, very important. And, you know, you have to choose whether you drive or eat, you know? So, I mean, gas prices are crazy.
I mean, that was the whole thing that Trump promised everyone that people voted for, is they lower gas prices, and here we are. So.
Yeah, lower prices on everything is what he said. Groceries, gas, everything. I feel like everything is just more expensive.
So now Trump is stuck. His shifting posture with Iran, I mean, we can hardly keep track of it. That's our job, is to keep track of it, and you almost can't. And that sort of merry-go-round he's been doing, negotiations, obliteration, that's made any kind of deal to reopen the strait exceedingly difficult. We're not currently negotiating, as far as anyone knows. And none of this is winning over the American public, as you saw from the chart. So basically, what they're left with is a strategy to just lie.
The fact of the matter is that all of the cylinders are kicking. It is good news. You can even feel in our environment how good things are getting. Gas prices continue to come down, which means that your groceries will come down a little bit as well.
Okay, two things. First of all, I love the fact that they're showing the crypto stocks while he's talking, like, yes, wow, a crypto rally. Second of all, did you catch what he said? Gas prices continue to come down. Senator Tim Scott, that is simply not true. And you don't need to go do a bunch of research to come to that conclusion. It's plainly a lie in the most obvious, sort of inexplicably condescending way. Nationally, the average price of gas, that's something we tabulate closely, it's $4.30 a gallon. Honestly, it might be even higher as of tonight, according to the live tracking data, because it's been going up by the hour. Even the conservative number is up 30 cents from a week ago, up by well over $1 since the war started. Again, that's just the average. Believe me, out west, they would be happy to pay $4.30 instead of over $6 a gallon like now. Even if we just look at Senator Scott's state of South Carolina, the state he proudly represents, the average price of gas there is about $3.90 a gallon. It was $3.65 a month ago. Meanwhile, a year ago, it was $2.83, more than $1 cheaper. Now, to bend over backwards, to be fair to the senator, we did find this one little nugget in the data. It does appear that the price of diesel in South Carolina is down slightly from the highest ever recorded average, which it hit 3 weeks ago, thanks to Donald Trump. But, come on, Senator. As petroleum analyst Patrick DeHaan points out today, the price of gas is up in every single state compared to a week ago. In fact, he says prices are going up so rapidly that the algorithms he uses to track them are having trouble keeping up. In fact, I'm going to talk to him about that in just a moment. So while there might be some small fluctuations day to day, it is simply wrong to say that gas prices are down. That's not even spin, right? It's just a lie. Even the very Trump-friendly CNBC host, Joe Kiernan, wouldn't let the Republican majority leader get away with lying about gas prices.
People that will remember, you go back 2 years ago, we were paying almost $6 a gallon for gasoline. Right now it's in the threes. Obviously, we've seen a jump with the Iran conflict.
When were we paying $6?
Still 50. Well, 2.5 years ago.
I don't think we were. That wasn't the average price.
Where we are now, we're over 30% below where we were just 2 years ago. Today, we are 30% below where we were 2 years ago.
You must have been on vacation in California. I think 2 years ago, in April of 2024, we were at about $3.65. So we're actually above where we were then.
Yes, thank you. Now, there are ways one could spin the Trump economy in a positive light. You know, there is a difference about spinning and lying, right? And spinning is part of politics. I mean, you could, there's good faith spinning. You could talk about the stock market, which has been going up. You could talk about massive and spiking business investment, which we saw in some of the numbers that came out today. That's real. That's happening. But if your message going into the midterms is to just plainly lie to people's faces on camera, right in front of them, about gas prices, the price that they see every day driving around, I think voters are going to laugh you out of office. I mean, even Trump is simply trying to sort of kick the can down the road.
The gas will go down. As soon as the war's over, it'll drop like a rock. There's so much of it. It's all over the place, sitting all over the oceans of the world. And it'll go down.
It's also not really true. Gas prices rise quickly, but they often take a long time to go down. Plus, again, as we've covered now for 2 months, Trump has absolutely no plan to end the war. He can't even articulate what the strategic end he's trying to meet is. It changes every day. And just last week, remember, he said he's no rush at all. His new big thing is he's going to blockade the blockade. Then today, they're trying to get a coalition of willing to unblockade it. If you're a Republican running for office in November, and I suspect a few of you do watch this program, I would just say, I would not hope for an assist from Donald Trump. Especially because, and I think this is important, I would estimate he spends right now conservatively about 90% of his waking moments thinking about his ballroom.
In light of today's Supreme Court ruling on the Voting Rights Act, do you want Republican states in the South to look at redrawing congressional districts before
I
the
don't really have
midterms?
to tell me, when did the ruling come out? I've been with the astronauts. I've been with contractors because we're trying to get the ballroom built ahead of schedule. It's right on schedule. It's ahead of schedule now. I want to keep it that way.
There's been some talks about changes to your security after what took place.
Changing my security.
Changing your security after what took place.
Well, they did a pretty good job, actually. You know, they stopped the NFL running back. I mean, he was like a running back. In fact, if he ever got out, they're probably going to sign him. It's a pretty tough situation. Now, right outside, we have something that's on time, on budget, actually ahead of time, and ahead of budget depending on finishes. You know, finishes is a big difference between marble and onyx in price, but it's right on budget, right on time.
Do you see how, like, he go and then he comes back to the ballroom? And a question pulls him this way, but he comes back to the ballroom. There was an attempt on your life, very scary. True, there was. Let's talk about the ballroom finishes. For what it's worth, the ballroom, the thing they're pivoting to, the things he's obsessed with, the thing that every Republican now wants to talk about as the central priority for America in the year of our Lord 2026, that ballroom is also very unpopular. Who'd have thunk it? Voters are actually against it 2-1 in the latest polling. Donald Trump doesn't care. He is literally measuring the golden drapes for his ballroom. I'm sure he's actually talked to the contractor about finishes for those. Instead of, for instance, trying to lower gas prices. And I don't think voters are going to let Republicans off the hook for it.
It wasn't this high before he became president, man. Gas was $3-something. Barely $3. Now it's $4. You know, it's... He don't need to be talking about ballrooms, man. You need to be trying to fix the economy. Better yet, you just need to retire and let J.D. Vance. Let somebody else run the country.
Well, that's one vote for J.D. Vance. My next guest has been tracking the shifts in gas prices closer than just about anyone in America. Patrick DeHaan is the head of petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy. And Patrick, it's great to have you in the program. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
I've been following your posting, and I was like, oh man, this guy he's trained for 20 years for this moment, because we have seen really over the last few days, particularly some pretty unprecedented volatility, particularly upwards volatility in prices. What's been going on?
Yeah, Chris, it's not very often that you see this amount of volatility in the market, but that's exactly what we've been seeing here over the last couple of days. Oil prices surging to $108 a barrel. A lot of this really developments from the Strait of Hormuz. The president extending a blockade on the Strait, and that is reacting in oil markets. Oil markets obviously don't like that we've been at this for 8 weeks. That's why the price of oil is higher. 20 million barrels would normally flow through the Strait of Hormuz on a daily basis. So that we've been at this now some 60 days, we're now at a point where 1 billion barrels of oil have not flown through the Strait. And that's why you and I are paying far more at the pump. And in fact, on top of that, we have the normal seasonal trends that are really causing a lot of pain, especially in areas of the Great Lakes, where gas prices just in the last 24 hours have gone up by over $1 a gallon.
See, okay, I don't actually understand why that. Why has the price of gas in the Great Lakes gone up $1 in the last 24 hours?
Well, a lot of that certainly has to do with, as I mentioned, the price of oil surging this week on the outlook. That doesn't look very good anymore. 2 weeks ago, it was certainly a little bit more of a happy market. Oil prices had been plummeting because of ceasefire. The U.S. and Iran were saying the same things. But now that party's over, the U.S. and the Iran regime not saying anything really similar, and Trump digging the boots in to keep the Strait of Hormuz blocked for longer to choke off Iran's oil to the global market, thus continuing to put upward pressure on oil prices. That, coupled with some of the seasonal theatrics across the country, namely the changeover to summer gasoline, refineries that are undergoing maintenance before the summer driving season, and that's where you get your fireworks through the Great Lakes. But everyone, all 50 states, are seeing some measure of pain, but that pain certainly much more acute in 5 Great Lakes states, at least for now.
One of the arguments I've seen, I think the president and some of his allies try to make is, We're now a net exporter over the past week of oil and gas. We've got all these ships that have been coming to the U.S. to load up with our oil because they can get to Asia if they take it from us. And I think some of that's true. I think it's going to be hugely beneficial to American oil companies, or American fossil fuel companies. But that doesn't help the pricing, right?
Well, it's certainly right. When you start to see 100 million barrels of oil, and by the way, the EIA, to be exact on this, said that U.S. exports in the last 7 days amounted to 99.2 million barrels. When you have that amount of oil, refined products like gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel flowing out of the United States, It's terrific for refiners and oil companies, and it's not so terrific for consumers watching our supplies sail out of the United States.
The president on defense over several things: the war, the impact of his war, gas prices in the economy, and then a wider view. The news is, this is what the public thinks, that the president is mishandling all of those topics. Trump called into CNBC today. His aides may have hoped it was going to be an effort to talk to a main financial channel, also our sister channel, of course, but the main sort of financial cable news outlet to talk about the economy, maybe try to boost confidence. But here's what happened. Trump instead committed a major gaffe. This is one of those nonpartisan gaffes. Doesn't matter whether you lean left or right, or whether you ever voted for Trump. This is one of those universal gaffes where you take something that everyone says is a problem, rising gas prices and inflation, something he ran against, and he dismissed it as so many peanuts.
I said, fellas, I got a little bad news for you. I'm going to put a little wrinkle in your numbers. Why, sir? We're going down to a place called Iran. I said, yeah, it's going to hurt the market, and it's going to drive up the price of oil and whatever it is, but that's peanuts.
That's peanuts. Imagine that you live in a place where you have to drive to pick up your kids or go to work or do anything else, and your budget is now out of whack, or you're underwater this month because of the president's choice to attack Iran, something he never explained that many people oppose. That's not peanuts to the people living through it. Trump's energy secretary and Fed chair also testifying today. They don't have a lot of good things to say about this economy.
We were proud to have gasoline prices below $2 a gallon earlier this year, and we look forward to getting them back there.
What are they right now?
Just over $4.
And what is diesel?
Diesel's over $5.
It's closer to $6 in my state.
It's over $8 in California.
It went on like that. As Jay-Z memorably said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And even on Capitol Hill, where Republicans run the committees, they run a lot of who gets to come and how those conversations go, the numbers were cropping back up. The numbers don't lie. The numbers show soaring inflation.
President Trump said that gas prices are, quote, not very high, and, quote, we're having some fake inflation because of the fuel. Do you think that gas prices going up 20% is fake inflation?
Senator, the gas prices like beef prices, eggs, milk, and the rest, they move. And when they move in the wrong direction, American people are hurting by it. There's no question about it.
That's right. American people feel it. It's not fake to them. It's money that they don't have in their pocket.
It's very real. It's not peanuts. And as you see, some Trump officials, especially under oath, are stuck talking about this reality. I told you the public has spoken, and they continue to speak against Trump, against second-term Trump. Sometimes our words become very narrow. We say Donald Trump, and you get a picture in your head. Maybe you're thinking of him from 2016. Maybe you're thinking of him during COVID. Maybe you're thinking of him now. Well, if you never liked him, fine, then that's what you think of. But a heck of a lot of Americans have given him a chance. He was running about 49% as recently as November 24. That's also a fact. And a lot of those folks are done with him. Because when you say second-term Trump, Iran war Trump, prices keep going up, and he dismisses your concerns as peanuts Trump, well, take a look at the numbers that don't lie. 36% job approval is abysmal. He's hit a second-term low. Washington Post reporting on Democrats seeing an opening, midterm upsets in districts where Trump won safely, that were MAGA turf. They think they can flip it. And that's not all. I want to show you something that you have to see to believe. I'm always transparent with you. We have this sound. I might play it more than once tonight. Okay, that's on purpose. But take in the sight of one of the greatest MAGA voices ever to grace your TV screen, because he got big on Fox, Tucker Carlson, who also continues to be a big part of what we hear is the MAGA podosphere, the digital space. He kind of has been able to walk both of those paths with media success, if you want to call it that. And he actively campaigned for Donald Trump in 24 because having left Fox, there was no more standards or rules holding him back. And here is what Tucker Carlson has to say. Not that, oh, I disagree with Trump on some things like the high prices in the war. Not that maybe the Republican Party should look to someone else in the future. That's a lot of the half criticism we hear. No. I want you to know tonight, Tucker Carlson is apologizing for ever helping to elect Donald Trump.
We're implicated in this for sure.
Yes.
It's not enough to say, well, I changed my mind, or like, oh, this is bad, I'm out. You and me and millions of people like us are the reason this is happening right now. I do think it's like a moment to wrestle with our own consciences. We'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be. And I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people, and it was not intentional. That's all I'll say.
Tucker is sorry. And he's sorry not only that he campaigned for Trump, but that, as he says, if it was misleading, because how could you accurately sell this thing, that was itself not intentional. Other podcasters have been going from the right against Trump. Take a look.
What American is this helping? Besides the war, the industrial war complex, I don't understand. That's what our president's up to, and it's baffling.
We're supposed to sit here and love this crap. It's just poll numbers go straight down, and all the polls show the Republicans are going to lose the midterms in 7 months by a landslide. A disaster. A total and complete disaster.
I think there's a lot of frustration with President Trump right now. Obviously, the left hates him. But you've got 80% of independents who are against this war, who I don't think are enjoying his little parlor games.
I mean, I'm just fascinated and excited to see what Megyn Kelly believes next week. But for the rest of the group, I think it is a massive exodus because it's a bunch of people and their audiences who were lied to by Donald Trump. And the same people who voted for Donald Trump because he said he would end forever wars, because he would clean up Washington, because he would release the Epstein files, and because he would tackle inflation, have now seen a president cover up the Epstein files, start a new endless war, and costs soar. And then, Alex mentioned it might be another year until prices go down. Even if they go down, I feel like they've betrayed their fundamental promise of I care about you. I'm going to fight for you. And that can't be taken back. That's gone now.
And to add numbers, gas prices, you ask people, well, how did we get here? We have a lot of debates. COVID was one. Well, you had a whole split on what it was and where it was going. Yeah. I mean, we lived through that. It's not always this united. 65% of the public says Trump caused the gas prices. Yeah. Now, if you polled economists, you might get 98%. But that 65, Alex, is a lot of people who statistically would be conservative.
Well, and can I just say, it's not COVID where we're debating what the truth is. Like, gas prices are what gas prices are. Like, you destroy refineries and storage facilities and oil and gas fields. They have taken 10% of the world's oil supply offline. It's just shut down. The energy secretary, who, by the way, was not consulted on this war, is like, this ain't coming back up till next year. They know the truth. And Americans aren't going to be duped by Trump saying, this doesn't matter. It's no problem. The strait's open or everything's normal. Like, as a matter of political strategy, what you would want to do, I would assume, as a leader, is inure your people, get them sort of ready and primed to understand that gas prices are going to stay high. He didn't do that before the war. He's not doing it during the war. And now he's telegraphing anybody who says gas prices are going to remain high is wrong. Like, how does that help? Right. That's just going to make people feel further cheated by this administration.
Right. And that's why we've covered this a bit, but it's really a key part of the second term and why I do think it feels different than the first. A lot of conservatives and MAGA voters today sound like liberals in the first term. Can you believe this? Megyn Kelly says his antics are no good. Don't make a mistake worse by lying about it. Right? They've now echoed those talking points. There's a little bit of a different tone and energy, but you get that. Democrats do see opportunities here. I've got a double question for you on the way out. They're aiming for midterm upsets. They're looking at MAGA areas. They think, quote, expanding the map will put pressure on Republicans to then spend in races that other years would be safe, which will also have a cascading boost on swing states. I'm paraphrasing some Post reporting. So two-part question. One, what is the right strategy in your view as someone who's been associated with the new wave of the Democratic Party? And two, although you're not, strictly only a Mamdani person, you worked on this campaign, and we're hearing this week from certain rich or business New Yorkers who say, look, he's demagoguing the rich again without results. Your response to both those issues?
I think on the first one, Democrats are going to have an incredible midterms.
Let's bring in MS Now's Laura Hafley from Greenwich, Connecticut, where gas prices are higher than the national average, as you're seeing there, Laura. So what are Connecticut drivers paying there at the pump, and what are they saying about it?
Well, as you would expect, Connecticut drivers, like a lot of people, are incredibly frustrated. We are just outside of New York. This highway right here actually feeds into New York City. So people have to stop at these gas stations to fill up their tanks. But look at what they're dealing with. $4.69 for regular. And look, wow, I'm just seeing this, Alex. Look at that total, $114 for a gas tank. That is an astronomical number. I have been covering this story for literally months. I've never seen that number before. Drivers are frustrated. This is a big commuter town. They need their vehicles to get into the city. Some are looking to alternative forms of transportation, but one thing is clear, it's not easy for anybody. Take a listen. There's been promises from the Trump administration that they're going to go down. Do you believe them?
No, I don't think so. I feel like it's going to go up. I honestly feel like we might be like at $5-something a gallon soon. And that's crazy. 4 days ago, I left behind somebody and his was $120. And I said, yeah, I'm not doing that.
As soon as you see over $100, you're out.
I'm just going to get a bike and just go everywhere with a bike because that's it. It's crazy. But yeah, it was $120.
Honestly, I've never done this before, but now every gas station I go to, I start signing up for the rewards just to save the 20%. It's getting to that point where it's like, oh my God, like if I can save at least $3-4, I mean, that's better than nothing at this point.
Not accountable. The average for U.S. gas prices 1 month ago, $4.09. Now $4.45 nationally. Don't even get me started on what it was a year ago. In Connecticut, we're above the national average at $4.52 a gallon. This is frustrating, and some people feel like it's never going to end. Alex?
Yep. Okay. Laura, thank you for that. Let's bring in Justin Wolfers, professor of economics and public policy at the University of Michigan. So, Justin, welcome to you. It feels like economic chaos, at least to some degree. You got the rising gas prices, Spirit Airlines failing, an affordability crisis that the public is certainly feeling. What is your assessment?
Mate, it really does feel like chaos. And Alex, I actually looked something up the other day, and it's kind of a really interesting metaphor. You know, they knocked down the east wing of the White House like 4 or 5 months ago now. I think it might even be 6 months ago. It was back in October. And what we have is 2/3 of a White House and a whole lot of rubble next to it. The president moved ahead without any congressional authorization, and what we have is a mess. Now, I don't care that much about a single building. The point is a metaphor, because I think you can take that same approach and think, how did the trade war end up? We still don't know where that's at. There was a year-long trade war, a Supreme Court decision, a temporary continuation, and no one knows what happens next. We went into Iran. We said we'd be there 4 to 5 weeks. We're now there 9 or 10 weeks so far. No end in sight. No talks. A blocked Strait of Hormuz. It feels like chaos because it is chaos.
Look at you from the 30,000-foot elevation looking at all of it. So what about Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy, who said today, once the Strait of Hormuz opens, gas prices will come down immediately. Look, we had a guest on yesterday who said, no, prices are not going to get back to normal until 2027. Where do you land on that?
Yeah, so there's actually two separate statements being made, and they're made to sound the same because the White House doesn't quite want you to know what the truth is. Look, the truth is, if the Strait of Hormuz is closed today, in all likelihood, the future is better than the past. Things can only get better from here. That's the sense in which they're right to say gas prices will likely fall. But a different comparison, and the one that actually matters to folks at home, is where will gas prices be relative to where they would have been if we hadn't embarked on this whole Iran adventure? And the truth is that gas prices, we can look at oil futures to figure this out, and oil futures for the end of 26, the end of 2027, the end of 2028, the end of 2029, and on and on and on, are all much higher than they were post-war. So we are pre-war. So we're going to continue to be paying higher energy prices than we otherwise would have as a result of this.
There's a new Washington Post poll showing 34% approval for Donald Trump's handling of the economy. And then there's this headline. Are you worse off financially today? More Americans say yes. So what would have to happen, Justin, to turn that around?
It's usually the case. And Alex, I have spent years talking to journalists saying, look, don't blame the White House. The White House is not all powerful. There's so many things that go into the state of an economy. Journalists tend to overstate the link between the White House and the economy. Right now, I can't say that because the most important challenges we face, war in Iran, the trade war, the central bank independence, very, very large fiscal deficits, all of these are coming from inside the House. So this is the first time in my lifetime that most of our economic challenges are challenges that we created.
Got to ask you about this week, the U.S. debt surpassing the size of the economy. It has not happened since World War II. And you look at the national debt clock, it is now more than $39 trillion. Look, we all know this is bad, but what are the implications for the country's economic outlook?
Yeah, so there's lots of ways to scare people about the debt. And I just want to take a step back and say sometimes borrowing money is a good idea. For instance, I tell my students when they borrow money to invest in their futures and come and learn economics at the University of Michigan, that will pay off in a successful future career. That's a good form of debt. But if you borrow money to spend it on beer on the weekends, then you're going to find yourself without a degree, with a really big hangover and a terrible credit card bill. And the question right now is, which of those are we doing? I tend to think of spending on the military as being the sort of thing that leads to a hangover. We have very large tax cuts to the rich that are driving a large part of this as well. So the judgment is one for the viewers. The question is this debt that we think will help pay itself off in the future? I have my doubts.
Okay. I'm sure your students, though, are very glad to be in your classes. Justin Wolfers, we're glad to have you as well. Thank you.
No matter what circumstances you are, what level of the campaign you're at, when you're explaining, you're losing. Okay? If I got to explain it, you're losing. If I got to explain the joke, it's not funny. If I explain the policy, I'm losing. And second, as I'm always quick to say with my students, these polls ain't loyal. They can always be moved, right? Your behavior can change the polling, but when you act the same way and you act that way consistently, they're going to be stuck. And you get to a point where no matter what you say, no matter what you do, people are going to say, you know what, you're not on my side. You're not in favor of me. You're not going to help me one way or another. And every single time Donald Trump gets on television and acts like what's happening ain't happening, every time he gets on the air and says the economy is fine and people are like, hey, oh my gosh, my gas is expensive. And I like that you mentioned earlier, I have mentioned before, I saw $7 gas last week.
My gas was $6.39.
$7.19 for gas an hour north of Los Angeles about a week and a half ago. I was floored. It wasn't in the city. It was north of the city.
Was that premium or regular?
It was premium. But
okay,
anyway.
that's fine.
The point being, I had never seen anything that high. And when you add to that, and this is the thing, I have to mention this about the economy and the impact on business people, the impact on housing, and everything else like that. The Spirit Airlines thing is not just emblematic of the dangers of the war and mismanagement and Sean Duffy's failure as transportation secretary, everything else like that. The fact that Spirit was a company that championed DEI, right, which is one of the reasons why the Trump administration was never going to offer them any sort of bailout, but also they are the airline of the small business owner. They're the airline of the plumber who takes a job out of state and needs a quick turnaround. They're the airline of college kids who are like, I just need to run home for this internship, et cetera, et cetera. You are punishing the growth economy in this country when you allow things like cheap discount airlines to go under. And that's the insensitivity of this administration as a whole.
You know, it's just so crazy because I think, first of all, we talked about it on the call, I think, this morning, but we were talking about the ceasefire, and I'm like, is it still a ceasefire if people have ceased to fire? Okay, so I just think we could call it a ceasefire if you want.
Call it
but
what you want. Right. It's not what
bombs
it is. Right.
things are dropping in
Yes,
Dubai.
yes.
Okay. One of our colleagues, his parents, Eugene, he's talked about it. His parents live over there, and like the bombs are dropping today. So let's just keep it 100. But when what you just described, I think part of what people in this country are feeling right now is something that's been going on for a long time, just the chasm that exists between the wealthiest people in this country and some of the poorest people in this country, or people that wouldn't even consider themselves poor, like working poor. Middle class used to be middle class, now is like
we don't have a
poor.
middle class like we used to. That's been squeezed out now.
Yes, and what is happening right now is just putting just like in COVID, Vice President Harris used to say it magnified the fractures and fissures in our society. What's happening right now is putting a magnifying glass on the economic situation for millions of people in this country. And you talk about housing, but when people say affordability, they are talking about the cost at the pump, the cost at the grocery store, and the cost to live housing. That means rent. Yep. That means to be able to own. And right now, there are millions of young people, and I mean not even like middle-aged millennials and a little older millennials that can't afford to buy a house.
I'm looking at the three levels at which people are currently struggling in this economy. So first off, I got a bunch of kids who I know are graduating because I'm a college professor at Morgan State University.
Do they have jobs?
A lot of them do not. And it's not just at my institution, right? Like a lot of kids are like, hey, I guess I got to go to grad school. Can I get the extra recommendation? Because they really don't have jobs, or they have jobs that don't allow them to leave home. Then you have the second level where you get to your older millennials, you get to your Gen X people. Very few people I know, and I know a bunch of professionals, we know similar colleagues, can no longer afford to send their children to the kind of colleges that they graduated from because the costs have been going high and because the economy is so unsafe and unstable. So I don't know if I'm going to have this job in 10 years. And then you've got your retiring singles or the retiring seniors or the people who are white knuckling their jobs because they're 65, 66, 67. I can't retire because I don't know if this economy is going to be stable. And I'm paying for my granddaughter to graduate because her parents are out of work. So you've got multiple levels of suffering happening right now, and there's no plan. There is no economic plan. So even when that polling shows that it's 50-50 of Americans believing who's better with the economy, is it Republicans or Democrats, that's a general brand check issue. But as far as the practical issue of who's going to make my education more affordable and who do I think is going to pull us out of this hole, it ain't the Republican Party.
It's not, and that's why I wanted to lead in our conversation at the beginning with what the national debt has been under this president. Because Republicans for a long time have made the claim that they were, and the public reassured them that they were best on the economy, right? Every poll, that number showed they were.
Y'all had better messaging.
We had better bottom line. We had better message. I'm not going to lie about it. We did. We had better messaging despite everything that was happening real time.
Right.
But this you can't escape. When you're spending $7 billion a day to put the future generation in debt, that becomes a real crisis real quick. And as you mentioned, Simone, those three pieces where you're talking your housing, your personal economies, your ability to afford various things, all of that weighs down. So what's the turnstile look like? How does this thing turn for the American people and for the politicians? And do you see a path or a glide path where Republicans can sort of land the plane? And yes, one wheel may roll off the road, but they hold the House or they hold the Senate. Or, in other words, the American people get to a point where they start to trust them again on the economy, because those numbers, to be true, they're close. It's not like, Democrats are running away on trust in the economy. Right. And that always seems to be the thing that flips people at the last minute.
Look, they let a whole airline die, so they ain't landing this plane, right? and so that's not going to end up happening.
Too soon,
I walked into that one, so I got hats off.
I don't see it, right? Because what do we hear Republicans talking about over the last 2.5 weeks? A ballroom, right? And redistricting. Redistricting doesn't do anything for me, right? If I am a regular voter, cutting up my representative, my state rep, my county commissioner, whatever, that does nothing for me. So they're not even beginning a conversation about how you would pull people out of the economic ditch that we're in. And I am fond of always saying, because I think sometimes messaging can be a bit overrated, I don't think the Democrats, in this one instance, you don't have to have a national message, but as long as you have strong regional messengers,
no, I
it's
think
good.
that's all they need, because midterm elections are district by district. This is not a national election. Exactly. I know we got to go, but I just thought it was so crazy that in the New York Times yesterday, They said that Pentagon officials said the war has so far cost $25 billion. The New York Times said roughly the cost of expanding Obamacare subsidies that were at the center of the extended government shutdown last year. To
And they
answer
own
your
a budget
question,
of $1.2 trillion.
I don't think the Republicans are going to get the benefit of the doubt from the American people anytime soon because they are the reason we are in this situation.